Warning: this podcast contains explicit sexual language and should only be listened to at work if you're looking for an excuse to connect with your HR representative. Additionally, all mentions of the word women include cis and trans women. For my friends who are genderqueer, gender fluid, figuring it out, anything in between, and feel like this conversation is also important for you, you are welcome here.
Will you open up with me? These pages, they can feed your innermost desires. Do you feel inspired? Are you getting what you need? Are you coming curiously? A secret safe with me. And here you can simply be yourself. Jace reads romance. Come on in, come on in, come on.
Hi, y'all. This is Jace, she, they, and you found Jace Reads Romance, a community dedicated to empowering women about sex and sexuality through the reading of romance novels. It is an interview day. If you have only found me through my forearms, you might not know that I also like to talk to bookish people. And the guest that I have tonight is someone who I met online, found them online, discovered we lived near each other, went to the same bookish event and didn't say hi because I was too awkward, and then messaged on Instagram asking if they had been there, and then finally introduced myself like 2 months later in some other bookish event. Something like that. So I am going to give time to Haley to introduce themselves.
Hi there. My name is Haley, otherwise known as Bookishly Haley online. I am she, they, or not she, they, she, her. I'm out. I answer any pronouns, but primarily she, her.
So as I said, we met online. I found Bookishly Haley on Instagram, which is primarily where you live in the bookish space.
Yes, it's where I
Yay.
live and breathe.
Live and breathe. So and that's so exciting. I think that these bookish spaces in social media as a whole, we get to really carve out a community there. And every place that you find people, you're gonna hit the algorithm a little bit differently. You're gonna do something else. So if you haven't found Haley, don't worry. Her information will be in the show notes. You can just click on that link and it will take you there. But I would love to hear kind of your journey into this romance niche space cave. Sometimes it feels like a romance cave. So how did you become a romance reader?
So I've kind of always been like off and on with like romance. So I started with like Nicholas Sparks in high school. And I loved all of his novels. I actually own, I think, every single one he's ever written. So I did that. Um, and then I kind of fell off it. I did a lot more YA. Um, did that for a couple years. Then I actually, in college, someone suggested which was
Yes.
which was literally my true introduction to like kink and like
Uh-huh.
hardcore romance. But, but then I went back into the YA space
Mhm.
for God knows how many years. And then it wasn't until I was living down in Southern Illinois. I went to school to be like a dietitian, which did not pan out. But while I was working in a hospital, one of my preceptors actually gave me one of her Kindles that she no longer needed. And it had a bunch of romance books already on it because we were talking about romance and like how I really wanted to get back like into it. And the book series that got me really, really into romance was I forgot the name of the book, but it's the Steel Brothers Saga by Helen Hart. Um,
Okay.
there's like 30 something books by now.
Oh my
But
gosh.
it was a major series. But that is what got me like back into romance. And that alone, having the Kindle, helped because that's actually how I found like all of my favorite romance indie authors, was
Mhm.
just from Kindle Limited. Because prior to 2017, I only read traditionally published physical books,
Yeah.
and then I transitioned into more online.
The crazy world that is Indian. I think we don't talk about enough how Kindles, and I remember Devin touched upon it, Seffi, when we interviewed Devin Sinclair, that the indie author space that exists right now didn't really exist before
Mhm.
Kindles because there was no real way to market when the only place you could buy books was in traditional bookstores or even indie bookstores. So I love that, and that's something I'm gonna come back to, like your indie space in a moment, because I know you do so much in the indie space. So you found romance and you got hooked on romance with your 30 book series and a Kindle. What was it about romance that got you to stick around? Not stick around this time, but really, like, get its claws into your soul?
Oh, that's a good question. Honestly, I'm the weirdest romance reader ever. I love the storyline. That's what I mainly focus on, is kind of like that storyline of like just them falling in love and like all that aspect. The other parts are just, a little bonus, but it's mainly just the honestly just the storyline, because all of the different tropes and stuff that are in romance books, they all just, I don't know, I just love them all.
Oh,
And then
that's important.
plus two, I am, most people don't know this, I'm asexual. And so reading romance, it kind of gives me that connection that I don't feel in like everyday life with romance.
Thank you for sharing that with me. I It's interesting because when you said that, that is how a previous podcast guest, Anita, described it, who is also asexual. She goes, "I didn't understand it until I read romance novels, and when I read romance novels, I get it, and I feel like I get to be a part of that thing that in my regular life I don't experience." And so I love that romance novels gave you that opportunity, but it also makes sense. You're like, "Those are the bonuses."
Yeah.
Give me a one-bed trope where they don't fool around, it's fine. Where they just sleep next to each other. So also in 2017, when you're discovering romance novels and discovering a Kindle, I feel like Instagram was becoming a real thing, and I could be remembering things wrong because what is time? But when did you join specifically Bookstagram? Because I think there are kind of 2 spaces. Sometimes we join as ourselves and then we discover a niche and we dive deeper into the niche, or we learn that there's a niche and we join a social media platform specifically for it. And I'm really interested in, when did you discover Bookstagram and decide to join as not just a consumer, but not just as a consumer, I wanna hear that too, but also as a creator, because those are 2 separate paths.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
actually started on Book Talk. Um, and I actually started at
What?
that first. And that's actually where I actually have more followers there than I do on Instagram. Instagram was actually my secondary one that I went to. So I started on Book Talk in 2022 and transitioned over to Bookstagram in 2023. I had actually always known that Bookstagram was a thing, but
Yeah.
I never consumed it. I never paid any attention to it. I always knew it was there and that it was a thing, but like I just never consumed it. Um, but yeah, I always had actually wanted to make a Bookstagram, but I always let my imposter syndrome kind of dictate
Mhm.
never actually putting that foot forward into making it. But then I just decided, I need to do some hard stuff. So I decided to join. And I actually posted off and on. I was never consistent up until 2024 this year, March.
Yeah.
Is when I actually started being consistent with like posting like every day and like actually being on it every day and like talking to people, and um yeah, that's kind
That
of how
is
that.
that's so funny to me because that's where I know you, and now I need to go
Yeah.
find your book talk because I and this is the weird thing about social media is I had no idea you had a book talk. I mean, it doesn't really matter in like
Yeah.
a month or so, but
Well, that's why I stopped posting on it, was because it was that fear of um
uh-huh.
the unknown of what's going to happen to it. So I made that switch. And then actually on my book
Yeah.
talk, I rarely post now. I'll post or post like just like book reviews now. I don't post
Yeah.
like videos or anything. It's just static video or pictures in like my book reviews, because those actually still get me a decent amount of views versus Instagram, where I don't get a whole lot of views. But
Okay. So what is the as a person who's on Instagram and I've watched you, oh God, when did I don't even know when I started following you, but like months before I saw you in person. I was like,
yeah.
I think the first time I thought, I think she lives in Chicago, was you went to a half-priced books. I was like, "Wait, I know this half-price books, like, I know where that is." And I was like, I think she's in Chicago, like, that's so crazy. But so you joined Bookstagram as a creator
Mhm.
completely, not a consumer.
No.
What is the thing that excites you and made besides the fear of losing TikTok, but there's gotta be some sort of drive because I love the content you post, and you're very engaging and you're very proactive in your content. What is the thing that excites you most about creating this bookish content?
Honestly, I mainly wanted to focus on it because I wanted to write reviews.
Mhm.
Prior to my bookstore, I'd actually never written a single book review, which is why I got into arcs, which we'll probably get into it later. That's
Yep.
actually why I got into that, was to write reviews. So that's my primarily reason for joining Bookstagram, was to just write reviews and just to post books I love. And so it wasn't until recently where I started joining like a bunch of content creator teams for like different
Mhm.
authors. So that's kind of what drew me into wanting to create. It's like I've recently been trying to not daggle, dabble into like, forgot what they're called, edits. I've been trying to dabble into edits a little bit more. With like just like
Oh,
doing like a background photo and like trying to like placing things. It's
yeah.
still really really new, like within the last like couple, maybe like 2 weeks, but I've kind of been dabbling into that. But I also don't like doing a whole lot of, I don't want to say like I don't like, it's I am someone who likes simple things. My brain cannot
Yeah.
handle complicated things, so which is why a lot of my photos and stuff are the same. They look the same. Like I have a static like look for like my books read and like books I'm going to read. That way it's just easy for me to plop the books in and kind
I
of
love it.
go, which is, I love that. Canva is a godsend.
Absolutely. There's something though about creating your I don't know if you would call it your brand or your aesthetic, like so that someone knows when they are looking at your TBR pile or your books read pile, they know that it's yours, even if they like if they're scrolling through stories, they're like, "Oh, I know that I'm now on Haley's." I as opposed to anyone else because I know what her things look like. I think that's important to remember that kind of recognition. It's not necessarily it might be boring to us because we stare at them all the time, but what we've spent 30 minutes editing or putting together, someone else is scrolling for 5 seconds after they've already scrolled 80 other things. So for them, it's a blip.
Yeah.
And but I love that you found that thing that works for you and that look that works for you because it's a lot. Like you read a I don't know if you know this, but you read a lot.
I do. It's all my mental illnesses, okay? Like, I can't help it. I
It's
just read all the time.
I I am with you. I
Depression.
think you're higher than I am in your books read this year. Are you?
I think
Wait, hold on.
last I looked, I was at 223. I just finished a book today. I'm probably
Yeah.
gonna finish at least, like, 4 to 5 more before the end of the year as well.
So we're not too far away, and it's a lot. Like, you read a lot, and I don't want to get into arcs just yet because I want to talk about the community building
Mhm.
that existed first before moving into arcs, because I feel like the community came first and inspired you to do arcs from what you've said. So, what as you built your Bookstagram or just even bookish spaces, because you had a book talk and you're on Bookstagram, and these are communities for book people on these social media platforms. What is it that excites you most and gives you that drive to build the spaces?
Honestly, just making friends.
Oh,
A lot of my friends in real life don't read, so I really wanted to just, have a place where I can literally just make book friends. And then it wasn't truly I didn't really feel the sense of community truly until I started going to book events. So the very first one I went to back in, I think November 2023, was Elsie Silver. That was like one of my first time being like surrounded by like book
yeah.
people. And so that was an awesome experience to kind of just talk to people online, like be like, oh, what's your like your Instagram? What's your Instagram? Actually, one of the girls that was behind me in line, we started talking and then I found her on Instagram. And
Yeah.
she's an author, she's writing a book. And so I've kind of
Ah!
been like championing her a little bit, being like, girl, I know you.
It is really cool when people become authors, and you're
Yeah.
like, "Look at this book in my hands. I know the person who wrote it.
Yeah.
What?" Oh
And
my
then
gosh.
yeah, and then, like, I think it was, like, and one of the reasons why I kickstarted my Instagram back off is I went to a Lila Sage event through the last chapter, and I
Mhm.
met so many book friends that I still talk to, and we hang out literally at every event.
You have a crew.
We have, like,
There's,
7
like
people.
there's a whole crew when Haley and her peeps show up, and they're always first. Like,
Yep.
I thought I got to an event early, and I was like, "Whoa, I'm cool," and then I turn the corner, and they are all there. Like, it's just
We're all anxious people, so we have to get there at least, like, a couple hours early. I swear to God, we get there at, like, 4:30
I
sometimes.
wanna veer a little bit back because of your real deep connection to the indie space. So with your Kindle, you joined KU, correct? Like, that
Yes.
was your gateway drug. And if you are not a book person and you somehow found this episode, welcome. We hope we convert you. We hope that you are now book people after this. But KU is this subscription where you get access to a whole host of books online through Shmamazon. And the great thing about KU for indie authors is it puts your books out there for people to access in a way that they couldn't before. With traditionally published physical books, you had to have your books in a store if they would take it. And we can talk, I'm sure you have feelings and knowledge about indie books in indie bookstores, but KU books, especially if you're exclusive to Shmamazon, your books get promoted in a different way. So you get recommended, you're at the end of, your what you should read next, you get the emails. And so it's been a great way for indie authors to connect with new audiences. When did you make your turn to really focusing on indie authors? Because it does become a beautiful a choice at a certain point. You get to choose to focus on indie versus trad. So when did you notice that shift in your reading?
So it was more towards 2018, 2019 when I kind of started tapering off. And to be completely honest, until I joined like the Bookstagram area, I didn't really realize that most of the authors I was reading were indie. I didn't actually know what indie and trad
Mhm.
were until joining the book community. And so pretty much just all the authors I found and love now were through recommended. So like You
Yeah.
read this, you'll love this. And I read it and I was like, sold. But
Okay, I want to know
it was about the 2018 area though.
what was the trope subgenre that you read? Because I feel like most of us, when we join a service like KU or Kobo or whatever it is, you get recommended a specific subgenre or trope. So were you mafia? Were you cowboy? In
Small
my
town
case,
romance.
small town romance. I
Small
am like
town right
hardcore
off the bat.
vampires. Are you Sapphire Falls? Have you read the Sapphire Falls books?
I haven't.
I loved those. Those were really fun. Those are one of my favorite small towns. Um, I'll I'll send you a link.
I
But
was really big into like Megan Quinn's Port Snow series. That
oh
was
my
actually
goodness.
my first series I read of her.
You transferred to indie. You discovered so many of your authors. And that's the thing, like on KU or on a Kindle on an e-reader, everyone's equal. Who the fuck knows?
Mhm.
Amazon doesn't care about your traditional publishing marketing dollars. They don't give a shit. So so it's all equal. But when did you discover arcs? And for those of you who are not bookish people who have found this, I'm sorry, I realize I should probably have put this in there. Or you can side note this, Michael. Trad means traditionally published. So there are big publishing houses, and they're the ones you can look up, and they're mostly in bookstores. They have beautiful little symbols on the back. Those are trad. Indie means independently published, or there are some small publishing houses that are considered independent and part of that indie, as they are not one of the big five of trad publishing or traditional publishing. And then you've gotten very active in the ARC community, and ARC
Mhm.
means advanced reader copy. What was it that appealed to you about ARCs, and specifically for you joining ARC teams? Because in trad they have their own people, but in indie often an author will build a team of influencers, of people who they like, they kind of know, or they build a rapport with, to be their arc readers. So how did you decide to do that, or get into that, get excited about it? And what has been your experience as an arc reader?
So I started reading arcs, I believe March of 2024, so March of this year. And I honestly just started just to write reviews. I never, like I said earlier, I never written a review before. So I was like, a way for me to force myself to write reviews is to, of course, read some arcs.
Yep.
And because that way too, it puts a pressure on me. There's a timeline. This is when it needs to be submitted.
Yep.
And so it helped my mind to be like, all right, I need to read this, write this down, and submit it. But it's weird because there's so many different ways to become an ARC reader. So I
Mhm.
started on NetGalley, which is a big website that houses so many books, trad and indie. So I started on there, where I found a bunch of indie authors, which a couple of them I actually am on their street teams because of my reviews. Um, and yeah, and then I started getting into like more public relations companies, PR companies. So I
Mhm.
started doing more from that aspect. But honestly, I love arcs mainly just to champion the authors. I love being able to just support them and promote them more than say. I mean, I'll promote them either way, but that way I
Yeah.
can kind of talk about them a little bit earlier, share my aspects. Um, and that sort of thing. And then for the like content teams and arc teams, I just happened to see a bunch of authors post about them, and I was like, sign me up. And they're all my favorite authors. I don't sign up for any kind of street team or arc team if I don't actually love the authors and have read like a bunch of their books.
Yeah.
So I think I'm on like 5 or 6 different arc and content teams right now. I think there could be
That
more
is a lot.
or less. Yes.
That is a lot of teams.
Yes.
'Cause there's some indie authors, they publish, like, 4 books in a year.
Mhm. Mhm.
They be churning those things out.
I'm a little stressed sometimes.
Well, there's a lot. How's your
It's
calendar?
fine.
Is it color coded? Is it color
Um,
coded?
It actually, let me see, kind of,
Oh my gosh.
kind of. So I have like arcs in red, and yeah, I have like books written out when they come out.
I I love this
But I
so
but I have
much.
I have my spreadsheet though. My Excel spreadsheet is where I keep like all my arcs that I have and like books that are coming
Mhm.
out. So I keep track of like when everything is coming out, and then I also put like who it's from so that I remember who I need to submit links to as well,
Yeah, like if
or
it's
submit my
the
reviews.
author or a PR company
Yeah.
or any of that. I love that. What are some of, like, we're an online space. All online spaces have their pros and their cons. And what are some of the biggest challenges that you've found being in this online bookish space?
So I have a lot of imposter syndrome. And so it's kind of one of those things where I feel like I belong, but then I don't feel like I belong because I feel like sometimes my content isn't like as good as like someone else's. And so I
Mhm.
put a lot of pressure on myself, even though I shouldn't. But then I think it's also because so many creators now are getting huge. Like there's some creators I've seen that are like in a year already have 10K followers, where
I feel that.
I'm like I've been here for like 2 years and I have 1,400. But
Mhm.
from honestly for me though, where I started back in March to where I am now is like for me kind of exploded. Um,
Yay.
But yeah, just kind of like putting that pressure on me and putting pressure on myself because I see like so many other people, doing great things. And I'm like, well, I want to do that. But then I'm like, I kind of just like talk myself out of it,
Yeah.
which,
It
is fine.
Look, this book, like, I've been doing this for like a year and oh, year? Yeah. Halloween. Halloween is when everything went live. Thanks, Steffi, for reminding me. It's crazy. And one of the things specifically about social media is there is no rhyme or reason. And I don't know if you felt this, but I felt this, and, like, that's why I'm so glad I met you, is, like, the people that you are meant to find, you'll find, and the people who are meant to find you will find you. And that's a really that, like, keeps me warm at night when I'm scrolling and, like, "Why did it happens. I don't know if you felt this when the Berkeley influencer thing came out. I was like, "I have to go off Threads today.
I
I
literally was
can't."
like, my hope, I don't have any hope, but fingers crossed anyways.
Yeah, I had no
I was
hope,
like,
but it was my entire Threads feed was
uh-huh.
just like that, and I was like, "I'm gonna put you down for right
I
now."
literally had to get off it because that was as same
Yeah.
because I was like, oh my god, so many people got it, and I'm like, I don't have an email. Oh god.
Do you ever feel this is my pantser question, and then we will conclude. But do you ever feel the pressure to expand to all of the apps that are out there? Like, "Oh my god, join me on Fable, join me on Discord, join me on Blue Sky," like, all of those things.
Yes and no. So I'm a pro. I sign up for a lot of things and then never post on them.
Yep,
So I
get your
have
handle.
I have a Blue Sky, which I think I've touched twice because I don't have the app on my phone, so I just do it on my PC.
Yep.
I got Threads, which I love. I had a Twitter, got off that real quick. Once everything went down with it.
Yes.
Um, I actually made myself a Twitch for my Bookstagram that I would eventually love to do as like a silent reading kind of
Mhm.
cozy stream, which I love that
Yeah.
stuff. He's laughing because I love watching cozy streams. So like I love doing that. So I have a handle on there. And then I have a YouTube, but I again I don't really post on it as of right now. 2025, my goal is to post more on there consistently. So I have that. But other than that, I had a Fable. I didn't really like it. I tried also like the story graph. I have that. Don't. really care for it too much. I love my Goodreads as much as people like to harp that it's a dinosaur. It connects perfectly to my Kindle, so I don't have to do any extra work.
Yep. There's something to be said for things that just work,
Yes.
that just, like, do the thing. It's nice. I think I don't know if you have your Kindle automatically update your
Mhm.
Goodreads when you, like, open a book or start a book. I don't, because I will
I do.
definitely sometimes open a book and be like, not today, friend," and close it, and so I would probably have, like, 10 books, like, open at a certain point and be like, "You're reading all these books." I'm like, "No, no, I
Um,
opened all those books. I'm only reading this one."
See, I'll open it to a book and then decide not to, but you can just click because it'll drop down. I just click don't add to read now, and then it gets
Mm.
off of it. So it doesn't add
Yeah,
it to
no.
my Goodreads. Because
That is valid.
I open a lot of books and then I'm like, I don't feel you today.
There's something I found that once I started reading a lot more and being really proactive of reading more, I became so much more of a mood reader.
Mm, I'm a
Like,
complete mood
before I was like,
reader.
"I will just read anything, whatever, it's fine," and then the more that I've been reading, the more that I'm like, "Mm-mm,
Mhm.
sometimes you're just not feeling it." And, so I need that freedom to, like, hide my indecision.
Well, that's why with a lot of like the ARC books I read, I've
Yeah,
been reading so many that I'm just like, I at times I'm like, I really want to read this ARC, and then I'm like, no, here's a novella about monsters.
perfect.
I'm like, sold. And then I go down a rabbit hole and I read about 4 novellas in a day when I could have just finished that one book. But I'm like, this is so great. This is so much better right now.
Cleo Evans, thank you.
Love Cleo Evans. Love
She's
them.
they're amazing. I am very much I'm a PNR human at heart, like, that's my first love, my deep
Yes.
love, and
It was
so the
very
Creature Cafe series, I'm savoring it just, like, one little thing at a time. Okay, here at Jason Reads Romance, whenever I have a new guest, I like to ask them 5 finishing questions, which are over here, and I have to read them so that I actually keep track of them. But the first one is, what is your favorite romance novel?
so. It's not like a traditional romance novel. This one holds a near and dear to my heart, and it is The Last Song by Nicholas Sparks. I gobbled that book up in high school. Literally read it in 16 hours, and I was so proud because it was straight. It was over a
Aw.
weekend. Um, that was that was at that time the fastest time I've ever finished a book, which I can say is not what it is now. It's way, way, way less. um, but that book just it had me in a chokehold.
Like, there are some books that hit you in a way that no other book will, and they hit you at the right time, and I don't know about you, but when I look back on some of the books that have been most influential or, like, the most impactful in my life, and I think that they're, like, my god tier books, they might not be the best of
Mhm.
books, but they hit me, or I found them at the right time, right place, and they were forever changed my life. And I think we have to acknowledge that those books, like, it's okay. Like,
Yeah,
it's okay if the book that did that isn't, what you would give 5 stars to now.
exactly.
Yep. So, where/how do you prefer to read?
So I in my bedroom I have a like comfy chair that I use. It's just like a big oversized chair. That I'll just sit on that with like a blanket and ottoman and just kind of just read like that. Sometimes I read in bed as well. Right before I go to sleep. A lot of time lately though I've been reading at work. So I just read at my desk. 'Cause I do that during my lunch and then before and after work as I'll read my book as well.
Mhm.
But mainly my chair where it can be comfy.
Comfy, comfy. Do you mainly read your Kindle, or do you also read physical books?
So I no longer read physical books. All the physical books I own are all trophies. And most of them are actually a good actually pretty much almost all of those are signed. Um, so now my physical books are literally just books I've read that I really enjoyed that I now have physical
Mhm.
copies of. But I read everything now on my Kindle, which I love because
Awesome.
it's so much easier for me. It's so much easier on the eyes because of being able to change like the warmth and stuff. So it helps my eyes a lot.
I don't know if I've ever changed the warmth on my Kindle.
I have mine up a little bit.
I changed this brightness a lot. I'm like, I have a actually I don't. I found the one that I like and then I never touched it again.
See,
Um,
the warmth helps with like blue light. So like if you're prone to like headaches and stuff, I'll turn it up so that way I don't get like strain my eyes.
I almost want to it's not with me, which it's out there. I'm like, now I want to touch it. I want to press a button. Okay, so here at Joyce Reads Romance, there is this idea that of comfy sexy, and it's the concept that in your comfiest space, in your safest space, you can explore your sexuality by reading a romance novel. And sometimes physically I show that by wearing like loungewear and lingerie, or for me athleisure. I'm like a huge like sexy athleisure human. What do you think of when you're like, yeah, comfy? And we've had people answer this with like, well, when I'm in my bed eating snacks. Like, great. What does comfy sexy evoke for you?
Um, that's hard for me because like I don't know. For me, it's just mainly outfits, like what I wear.
Mhm.
But I also a lot of my clothes that I wear, when I go out. When I'm at home, I'm a gremlin. I just dress sweater, shorts, I'm good. Sometimes in my shorts, I do feel myself a little bit. You know, the athleisure shorts, they shape a little great. Um, but mainly when I go out, I'll wear like really high waisted jeans and like a cute, just like tank top that really like cinches everything in, and that's usually what I feel like the most sexiest. And a lot of those book events, I'm wearing my cute, comfy, sexy wear, and I'm just like, yes, I'm feeling myself today.
So I feel like that you stole the thunder of my next question, which is like when you feel your sexiest. So it's when you're like waiting in line at a bookish event
Yeah,
in your
I'm just like, yeah, I'm ready. I feel
I
good.
feel
And
myself. I'm
sometimes, a
ready.
lot of times, it's like if I leave the house, I try to put in a little bit of effort, just sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like so many people after COVID are like, "Nah, I have my indoor sweatpants and I have my outdoor
Yep,
sweatpants."
pretty much.
And eventually the outdoor sweatpants become my
Become,
indoor
in fact,
sweatpants.
yes.
You're like, "I sat in something weird and now they are indoor sweatpants." Especially in Chicago, you're like, anytime you ride the L, whatever you've just worn, you risk it.
Oh god, yes, that is
Oh
true.
my god.
You never
Okay.
know.
You it is I fucking love living in an urban environment. I love living in a city with like humans and transit and like all the shit that we deal with. I couldn't imagine. But I digress. One question, one more, and then I will free you from this bondage of virtual reality. What is the one thing you would like women to know about sex and sexuality? And we didn't talk a ton about sex and sexuality, which is fine because I was here to talk to you about romance building community. But there's a lot in the bookish space about sex and sexuality and how that's expressed. But what do you want in these last few minutes? What do you want women to know? Like you can call it your soapbox thing.
Honestly, mainly just like sexuality isn't one thing. There's so many different aspects of it. Everyone has like different takeaways, and like some people read romance for the romance, the steamy scenes, while other people read it for like the character building and actual like plot of the books. Um, yeah, I don't know, because like for me, like I said earlier, I'm asexual, and so reading romance books kind of just helps me build that connection, to where I don't get like that sexual like aspect of it, and that's kind of not talked a lot about in like the romance community at all. Is that there are asexuals that do read romance, and like a lot of times it is the spicy, raunchy romances too that I love, but I might not get the same like aspects or like same like
Mhm.
um takeaways as other people would.
Yeah. So, so important. Thank you for sharing everything that you've shared. Thank you for being my internet friend and, like,
You.
real person friend. I see you in real life. I'm gonna, like, ask you about all the book stuff once we stop recording. Um, and and I appreciate everything that you've shared with me, and not just with this podcast, but with the bookish community at large. So keep doing what you're doing, keep sharing what you're sharing, and I know that I, for one, will be watching. If other humans wanted to watch you, where I know we talked primarily about other things, but why don't you spell out your Instagram handle and the places you would like people to find you most?
Okay, well, my handle is Bookishly Haley. It is BookishleyHaley. So Bookishly Haley.
Bookishly Haley, spelled
Bookishly
that way.
Haley.
Is that's probably where you will find her the most, and I
Yeah.
have a feeling if you branch into the other social media or on Threads, are you also
Yes.
Bookishly Haley on
I
Threads?
am very active on Threads, and I am also bookish. I'm Bookishly Haley on all social media platforms.
All of them.
All of them.
If when you
If you
start posting more on YouTube, you will post on Instagram that you are now on YouTube too.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Like I said,
Thank
all of these will
you.
be in the show notes. Go follow Haley. We'll I'm gonna take a sneak peek picture of you at the next event. Like, show up and be like, this is Haley from the podcast. Thanks everyone for joining me, for listening, and go find Haley on Instagram. Bye. That's it for today, y'all. This has been a Three Paws Productions podcast. Our producer is Seffi. Michael Achenbach is our patient editor. Our theme song is written and performed by Diana Weishauer. You can find show notes and so much more at jacereadsromance.com. That's JAYCE Reads Romance. Follow along on TikTok and Instagram at Jace Reads Romance. If you'd like to ask a question or share a story for the podcast, call and leave a message at 661 Jace RR. That's 661-529-2377. Or send an email to jace@jacereadsromance.com. Finally, like and subscribe so you can get every episode when they drop. You can also leave us a review to help others find us. And remember, this is Jace holding space for you.